Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another tag video. I'm doing another tag, the summer school tag, which you have gathered from the intro. But before I do that, first I want to thank everybody who watched the birthday surprise video that Sean, Greg, and Mel and Doris came up with, and who wished me a happy birthday either in the comments or on Instagram and on Voxer and on Twitter and on Facebook. It was really, really, really lovely because due to Corona, I couldn't really have a big celebration. I mean, I'm not that huge on big parties anyway, but for a sort of a round birthday, I tend to do that, but obviously this year I couldn't. So it was really, really lovely to get birthday wishes from all over the world. Thank you very much. And the second is announcement that I'm behind on my comments again. I know I haven't answered any comments for the last 2 weeks. I just couldn't get around to it. I feel really bad, be assured, really, really bad, and I hope to catch up next week. So forgive me if I haven't answered your comment yet, but I will. I promise. Next week, hopefully. But on to the tag, the summer school tag. Originally created by Doris from All the Books. I leave her original tag down below, and she created this tag as part of her summer school readathon. I leave her announcement video down below as well. It's only sort of just over mid-month, so you can still, check it out and maybe join. And the tag, I forgot who tagged me. I didn't write it down. So whoever tagged me, thank you. And anyway, the summer school tag is sort of themed according to the prompts that Doris came up for the readathon. As always, the questions are on my computer because, as you know, even now that I turned 60, my memory didn't improve really. Anyway, so prompt number 1, language arts. Tell us about a book you were assigned to read in school. And because I'm German and I went to school in Germany, you would probably expect, I have an itch, sorry, a German, but I have to tell you, I think we read one female author, if I can remember, Ingeborg Bachmann, I think, for German. And I checked the curriculum for the German high school exam, the Abitur. 95.5% or even more is still dudes. So the same for English. But there was one exception, and that was our French teacher. Maybe because she was a woman. So we read Balzac, and we read Flaubert, and we read short fiction by male authors. But we also read Madame de Staël and George Sand and Colette. I can't remember which book or shorter piece by Colette we read. So I picked for this prompt, the series that Colette wrote about Claudine, a young girl, coming of age. She is very, how can I describe her? She is fierce, but also has her insecurities, and it's a whole series, I think 4 or 5 books, and I love those books. I was introduced to Colette by this French teacher, so thank you very much, Frau Medfessel, who of course doesn't live anymore. She was in her early 60s already when I went to high school, but she introduced me to a lot of female French authors, and one of them was Colette, and I love Colette's work. So if you have never read her, check her out. I think she's fabulous. On to prompt number 2, maths. That's I could remember. Oh yes, when will I ever use this again? So in her announcement video for the tag, Doris explained, and I certainly agree with her, that when you have maths in high school, you often hear from other students, when will I ever use this again? For instance, when you are taught exponential functions, which now come in handy if you know what that means because of the corona pandemic. That's a side. But anyway, you hear that a lot. And so the prompt is choose a book where the character needs mathematical skill. And for this prompt, I chose a debut novel by Whitney Scherer, The Age of Light, published last year, 2019. And the subject of the book is a fictionalized account of Lee Miller. Lee Miller was a photographer. She was born in 1907 in New York, and she, as you can see, was beautiful. So she started off as a model, first in New York for Vogue and other magazines. And in the 1930s, she moved to Paris, where she became the apprentice assistant of famous, much older photographer Man Ray. And she became his lover and his muse. And there are a lot of pictures taken by Man Ray of Lee Miller. But she also became a photographer then in her own right, which a lot of people now have forgotten because she was just the lover of a very famous man. She did architectural pictures, but then during the Second World War, Lee Miller was one of the very, very few female war correspondents. I love her work. I even own a photograph by her. And if you look closely, you can see the Eiffel Tower in the mist in the background. Lee Miller struggled with depression her whole life and with alcoholism. And the book, The Age of Light, explores Lee Miller's life as a young woman, a model, and then a photographer. And you need math for photography, for the shutter speed, for if you make composition, you need the law of the thirds. You definitely need mathematics if you want to be a good photographer. So here you go, The Age of Light, about photographer Lee Miller. Prompt number 3, science. The last science-related book you read. And actually, I'm reading one now, so I'm sort of tweaking the prompt because it's my tag anyway, and that is Temple Grandin, The Autistic Brain. Temple Grandin is autistic herself. She was born in 1947. She wrote a couple of memoirs also about her autism. This one is partly memoristic, if that is a word, and if not, it should be. But it's more the science behind autism, so about neurology, about the developments when the MRI was developed, but also including autism in the psychiatric spectrum. I'm only about halfway through, and I'm reading this as a buddy read with Heidi from my reading life. And it's really, really interesting, the science about the brain. If you're following my channel, you know that I'm always interested in neurological topics. So this is a great example of science made accessible with a personal story attached. Here you go, Science, the Autistic Brain. Prompt number 4. And I looked that up before I switched on the camera. How about that? Prompt number 4, social studies. So a book that either has been translated from another language or that is about politics, government. And I chose a book that has been published 5 years ago in 2015 by Valerie Hudson and others, Sex and World Peace. And it explores the sexual violence against women during conflicts, so war or a civil war situation, and it is a subject that is not explored enough, I would say, even though it is prevalent. Sexual violence against women is prevalent, of course, not only during conflicts, unfortunately, but especially during war and armed conflicts. It is a subject that needs to be explored. The impact it has on peace after the war, how we deal or not deal with the sexual violence that had occurred against women. I think it sounds fascinating and I'm very interested to read it. On to prompt number 5, Exploratories. Which category of extra non-core classes did you take the most of in high school? And we don't have that system I went to high school in Germany, obviously, and we don't have that system of, core classes and extra things, exploratories or whatever. So in order to answer that question, the only thing I can say is what I did outside of high school as additional. And I did a lot of ballet. I started ballet when I was in elementary school, when I was about 6 or 7. And I did ballet or dancing, first classical ballet and then modern dance, jazz dance, up until the end of my university years. So we don't have that in school. So you get something that I did in my free time. The next prompt number 6, is also something that I don't really know what it means, but the prompt is explained then. It's called Common Core, and obviously that is a term related to school curriculum. I have no idea. But the prompt says share a good pairing of fiction with a non-fiction book. And I can definitely do that. So the fiction pick is a book that was recently published in 2020. It's an Australian author, Pip Williams, the Dictionary of Lost Words. And I just finished it recently, and I will certainly talk about it some more. It's set in the early 19th century, starting 1806, something like that. And partly it is, it's historical fiction, obviously, and partly it is about the making of the Oxford English Dictionary. But it is written from the point of view of a young girl. When we start the book, the main protagonist is about 6 years old, and she starts to explore words in terms of which words are included in a dictionary and which words are not, and especially words relating to women. And she starts to collect those words from early childhood on to later in life. I really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a fascinating read, the making of a dictionary, but also from quite a different angle. And again, I only have this book. I don't know whether you can get it if you live outside of Australia, because Annette from the Ravens Parlours books shop sent it to me. So Annette, thank you again. So that's the fiction book, and the non-fiction book is about dictionaries, the Merriam-Webster. It's Corey Stamper, Word by Word, and it was published in 2017, and Corey Stamper works for Merriam-Webster, so it is a memoir when she starts after university, when she starts as an editor writing for the dictionary, so making definitions of words. And it's I thought it was an absolutely fascinating read. If you are interested in that subject, in dictionaries and words and how to define words. And again, it also explores which words are included and which words are not included, and how language changes over time. So these two books together, they pair perfectly. Talking about language, I'm saying fascinating a lot in this video. I will try to find another word for all the fascinating books to come. Anyway, prompt number 7. Research. What was the last topic that inspired you to seek out books so you could read up on it? And if you're following my channel, you will probably be not surprised that it is about the flu, the so-called Spanish flu, the influenza epidemic that happened. All kinds of things are happening here that occurred almost precisely 100 years ago, between 1917 and 1919, during the First World War. And I saw a book on Doris's channel about the flu, and I thought that was interesting. And then I started just to read on and on and on. And one of the books that I read that I can recommend if you want to have a fairly recent look back on that epidemic and how it changed the world and the global influence it had, then I can recommend Laura Spinney, A Pale Rider, which was published in 2017. Prompt number 8. If you're a teacher, what subject do you teach? And if you're not, which subject would you teach if you were a teacher? If you know, you probably know that I teach, I'm a university professor, so I teach students at the Dutch University Maastricht. I formerly taught in Amsterdam, and now I have a position in Maastricht, and I teach legal ethics of lawyers. So in other words, how you have to conduct yourself in order to be a good lawyer, and not good in the sense that you win all your cases, but ethically good. I love that subject. I started working on ethics back when I was a student myself. I did my PhD on an ethics related subject, and after I had been a lawyer for many years, and then I started to switch from being a lawyer to being a teacher, I thought that is the subject that I want to teach, because it's fundamental to being a lawyer that you know your ethical rules. So I love it, and I think my students enjoy it. I taught for the first time now after Easter. I taught my class in Maastricht, and for the first time online, which went quite well, I would say. So ethics, professional ethics, in particular, the professional ethics of attorneys is my subject as a teacher. Prompt number, I forgot which number we are on. Prompt number 9. Share a photo from your school days. And if you have been watching my birthday surprise video all the way to the end, and I don't hold it against you if you didn't, because it's over half an hour long, you will have seen baby pictures. So I had to go all the way in the basement to find a box, because most of the pictures from my childhood are at my mother's place. And as she always say, you get them when I die. But I have a couple, and you've seen baby pictures if you watch that movie, so I'm willing to share a picture from my high school days, which I also picked up when I picked up that box. And it's elementary school, the celebration at the end of the school year, at the end of elementary school, and we did a performance of an opera, a child opera, which is called Struwwelpeter, that's a famous children's book in Germany, and it had been made into a sort of a musical. And as you probably have gathered, because you have been staring at this picture, I forced you to stare at this picture for quite a couple of minutes. I did the conducting for some reason. I can't quite remember why, but I conducted the piece. So here you go. That was the picture from my school years, not high school, but the end of elementary school. And prompt number 10 is to tag fellow learners. And I will do a cop out here, because this tag has been going around so much and I just can't remember who has been tagged and who hasn't. But if you haven't been tagged by anybody else, please consider yourself tagged and do the tag. Anyway, this was my take on the summer school tag by Doris. Whoever tagged me again, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you are still all safe and healthy. Looking forward, as always, to your comments, and I'll see you soon in the next one.